Many of the world's most common individual problems have actually been pondered and solved hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. If you don't believe me, look at the book Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. He was a Roman emperor and arguably the most powerful man in the world at the time. The book is a collection of his personal diaries, and if you read them, you'll find that the content is weirdly relevant today as it was back then. So in this video, I'm going to go into the 5 philosophical ideas which have completely changed the way I view my life and how I go about living it. Number 1 is less is more, and this can be applied to a whole range of areas within your life. The thing is, we live in an age of abundance, but we're actually genetically coded for scarcity, and you only have to look as far as things like social media or our diet to see this in action. Our bodies and brains expect resources to be few and far between. That's why when we see food or knowledge or information floating around online or social media, we tend to try and digest as much of it as we can because our bodies or brains don't actually know when the next piece will be available. We've evolved from hunter-gatherers, and in this environment, food was something that you had to physically go out and get and earn. Whereas in modern society, it's just a matter of, going onto an app and ordering things and it just arrives on your doorstep within hours sometimes. 2 practical applications really come to mind when it comes to less is more, and these things can really help simplify your life, and you'll find that your stress levels also go down with it. The first one is the 80-20 rule, and this can be applied to a whole range of different things in your life, and one of them could be 80% of your problems in your life stem from 20% of the causes or 20% of the inputs or sources in your life. Another one is 20% of your inputs generate 80% of your outputs. So this could be in the context of your workday. Most of what actually gets you to be productive or causes you to be productive are 20% of the things you do in a day. This could be completing certain reports or making specific sales calls or whatever it may be depending on your job. But most of what actually generates the results are actually a small percentage of your overall efforts. So for example, if you're in sales, you'll find that 80% of your sales probably come from 20% of your client base. And again, this whole 80-20 rule can be applied to a whole range of different areas. The next practical application is called Parkinson's law, and this states that the amount of work that you have to get done expands to fit the amount of time that you've allocated for it. So, for example, if you had a project to get done and you allocated 2 months to get it done, it'll probably take you 2 months. Whereas if you gave yourself a week or 2 weeks, it'll probably take 2 weeks. And this really comes into the whole idea of like urgency, but also our brains are just designed to fill the time as necessary. So another example is like the 9 to 5, the typical workday. And because it's like 8 hours typically, you'll find that most people will actually get most of their work done or all of their work done if they really compressed it into about 3 to 4 hours. But because the day gives you 8 hours to get it done, you tend to use those 8 hours. So you take coffee breaks, or you take your time with things, or you kind of zone out from time to time because the urgency isn't there because it's an 8-hour day. This is why things such as the 6-hour workday or the 4-hour work week tends to increase your productivity overall, despite the fact there's actually less time to get it done. So the main takeaway from this whole less is more is finding ways to really kind of slow down the pace of your thoughts and quietening the mind. By doing this, it's amazing how much anxiety and stress will be reduced. So you can do this either by taking chunks of the day specifically for doing very little, and that gives your brain a chance to kind of slow down and digest what's been going on. Alternatively, you can cut out things that are not serving you very well, such as endlessly scrolling on social media. It's fine to do this from time to time, but by doing it without really thinking about why you're doing it is what's causing your brain to go into cycles repeatedly and rapidly, and this is what's causing many of your stresses and anxieties because you're not giving your brain a chance to unwind. And this conveniently takes us on to the next one, which is it's a marathon and not a sprint. You've probably heard the phrase, good things come to those who wait. And this isn't like an excuse for laziness or anything, but by actually having your expectations in check and realizing that most things good or worthwhile in your life come from when you put sustained effort in over a long period of time, and the results compound over that time. And it's only when you kind of start to view things in the big picture, you will see that, oh wow, there's a noticeable difference between where I am now and where I started. So there's a concept called Kaizen, and this means continuous improvement. Consistently making small improvements over time leads to big results. This whole idea applies to so many different areas, such as your career. So if you try to make sustained improvements over time, you'll find that within 5 to 10 years, you'll be in a much more noticeable and prominent position than where you started. Another obvious example is family. You can't raise a child within a day, but if you do your best and try to learn from your mistakes and so on, you'll find that over a period of many years, you will become a better and better parent. So the next idea is that everything has a cost. Nothing comes for free, but most people don't consider this or really think about it when they spend their time doing something or pursue something such as their career or family or whatever it may be. So for example, someone could spend most of their energy while awake trying to further their career or become wealthy. So this is a perfectly reasonable thing to do, but most people don't realize the cost of that pursuit. So if you disproportionately pursue wealth and career, then something has to take a hit. And this could be your social life. So maybe you're spending less time with your friends because you're pursuing your career. But often it could be things like family and your relationships, your relationships with your partner or your kids if you have them. So really taking time out to consider why you're doing something. So having that strong reason why will help you solidify the purpose behind doing something, but also it might make you more aware of the consequences of doing this at the expense of something else. At the end of the day, life is going to be filled with little regrets because you can't do everything. But if you're consciously aware of these regrets and come to terms with them, then it won't kind of eat you up in the future. So the primary currencies of life are happiness and time. So you really want to optimize for these things. So anything that gives you more time or gives you more happiness are things that you should prioritize. Where some people take on things that give them less happiness or less time. And this could be like taken advantage of by colleagues or your boss who constantly ask you to do favors for them but expect nothing in return. By feeling obliged to do these things, you'll find your self-esteem goes down, your free time and freedom goes down, and your happiness goes down. So the next one is Carpe Diem, which means seize the day. Focus on the present and try to make the most of it. I find it's always helpful to remember that regret is anchored in the past and anxiety is anchored in the future, but usually the present, this moment right now, is safe and comfortable. Another phrase is tomorrow never comes, or there is no tomorrow because it'll always actually be today. If you think about it, most of the things that make you feel stressed or uncomfortable have either happened in the past or you fear that might happen in the future. But 99 times out of 100, you're perfectly safe in the present. So the next one is called Memento Mori, which means remember that you will die. I know it's a little morbid, but actually, if you think about it, whenever you're feeling stressed over maybe a particular meeting or an interview or something that is actually quite insignificant, if you zoom out and look at the big picture and realize that you've got a certain number of years to live, this is your life, and within that context, you are one person on a planet of 8 billion people, and that planet is one planet in one solar system, which is one of billions or trillions of galaxies. So when you really zoom out and view yourself in the context of the wider universe, it really helps you put into perspective that these individual things don't actually matter. So the other aspect of this is when you view yourself relative to other people. So for many people, maybe you have low self-esteem or you look up to people or view yourself as being below other people, but actually in the context of life, we're all in the same boat. We're all going to leave this life in the same way that we entered it. So we can't take our wealth, our status, our riches, or anything else. We entered this life with zero assets and we're going to leave this life with zero assets. For some, they're able to leave a legacy that lasts longer than most, but even this becomes more and more irrelevant the longer the time frame. So if you think of the entire history of this planet, how many people who lived more than 500 or 1,000 years old do we still know today? And the likelihood is that it'll be the same with us in the future. So in 1,000 years, 2,000 years, how many people of today will still be known in the future? I expect very few, if any. So the main takeaways here are to try and leave the world in a better place than you found it, and to try and live life to the fullest. So a nice phrase is that we all have two lives, and the second one begins when you realize you only have one. And that's all for this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoy this kind of content, let me know, or if you've got any suggestions, leave them in the comments. But for now, I will see you in the next one.